is NBC Palm Springs.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Gino Lamont, topping our news this evening. Police in Palm Springs are warning the community about the threat of gang violence. Since October, they've received 85 calls related to shots fired in the North Palm Springs area. The police department is also investigating 3 homicides and 9 attempted homicides. They are now working with Cathedral City and Indio Police Departments, as well as Riverside County Sheriffs and the DEA. The Palm Springs Police Chief says he's never seen anything like what's happening right now in North Palm Springs. This as 5 suspects in connection with the recent shootings are arrested over this past weekend. Chief Reyes sat down with our Kitty Alvarado, and she joins us now in studio with more. Kitty.
That's right, and Chief Reyes says this violence has gotten to the point where anyone is fair game. In fact, he told us it wasn't a good idea for us to go to those neighborhoods. And as a reporter, I have never heard this from police officials. But I can tell you that people who live there are scared.
I've been in this business for close to 30 years. I really can't recall another time in any recent history where we've had this level of violence.
Palm Springs Police Chief Brian Reyes says since October, 2 rival gangs in North Palm Springs have unleashed indiscriminate violence on the communities of Santiago Sunrise Village and Desert Highland Gateway Estates.
Close to 90 overall shootings calls for service. 24 of those are confirmed crime scenes, 3 murders, 1 attempted murder where someone got shot in the head that's still alive, and 9 other attempted murder cases.
5 people were arrested over the weekend in connection with the shootings.
1 was a juvenile that had a loaded firearm.
But he says this is far from over. These neighborhoods have become so dangerous that people making a wrong turn have become victims. Homes are being shot at random and no specific person is targeted.
And that's the scary part. Shootings are occurring in both areas of our city just for merely being there.
But he emphasizes everyone should be concerned because there will be a shooting wherever these rival gang members cross paths.
It's gotten to the point where it's so violent, just the mere presence of each other is causing shootings. So that means it could happen anywhere.
These communities are living in fear. We tried speaking with several people who didn't want to discuss the issue because they're scared.
There are a lot of scared people. They don't want to talk to you, and they don't want to talk to the police because ultimately they have to go back and live every day in those communities, and they're concerned for their safety. So that just reinforces how much this violence is impacting overall communities.
Chief Reyes says we must all do everything we can to stop this violence for the sake of the children.
The impact on the kids, the fear in the kids that they just want to live every day and just play in a park. And they can't do that right now.
And Chief Reyes says many of those involved are young teens. He says a team effort with parents, departments like his, and other community programs can make a difference. He says we owe it to the children to step up and take action to stop the violence before more end up in jail or killed. I'm Kitty Alvarado.
All right, thank you, Kitty. A man accused of shooting a shotgun round over houses in Cathedral City was taken into custody early this morning. He refused police orders to come outside, staying in his home for about an hour and a half before finally complying. Police then searched his home and found a shotgun and ammunition. He was arrested on suspicion of negligent discharge of a firearm, and no injuries were reported in this incident. TSA officials say they have found more than 3 times more guns at checkpoints this year than last year. They say they're finding the firearms, most of them loaded in carry-on bags. The fine for bringing a firearm through an airport checkpoint stands at $2,000, but can go up to as much as $10,000. On day 10, the apple fire is finally starting to look like it's under control, now up to 45% containment after burning more than 32,905 acres, and has only grown to around 500 acres in the past 3 days. Some firefighters were sent home over the weekend and some teams reduced. Still, nearly 2,300 firefighters are fighting the blaze. New information tonight. All evacuation orders have been lifted for both Riverside and San Bernardino counties. Full containment is expected a week from today. Now, whenever we see wildfires in California, obviously the biggest priority is to save lives and property. But for the apple fire, there was an unusual challenge to save what some call a national treasure. Daytona Everett has the incredible story and exclusive images from the rescue mission to save part of Mother Nature. Daytona.
Gino, it's called the champion oak tree, and the name says it all. This tree could be between 800 and 1,000 years old. It almost didn't make it another year, but thanks to a special crew, it lives on. It was the fight to save a life.
They were going up to save the largest oak tree in North America.
The life of the champion oak tree.
I just woke up and knew right away what we had to do.
Of course, Oak Glen Preserve expert Tim Krantz needed a team to help. That team was 30 inmates.
It was a special crew. It's a convict crew.
And they had no idea what they were getting into.
It's 3,000 feet of vertical. It's a 45-degree angle. Full sun. These fire crew guys are lugging chainsaws and fuel and picks and shovels, dressed in full fire gear. The guys get to the base of the tree and look up. It's 43 feet in circumference, about 100 feet high and 100 feet wide.
With the fire quickly approaching.
And here's the helicopters doing drops just 100 meters upslope from us.
It was time to get to work.
Really exciting with the helicopters right above us and the guys working hard. And it took them about 2 hours of work for 30 guys to clear that brush and save the tree. Really made us all very proud, I think.
Now, there were still some spot drops today. They're taking water from the pond nearby and using it to keep everything under control. And I just want to apologize to you, Gino, that I wasn't able to take any pictures or videos myself. I didn't make that hike, you know? I'm Daytona Everett.
Yeah, you should have hiked to 3,000 feet straight up, Daytona. Here's a closer look from the U.S. Forest Service at the retardant dipping stations that are used by those firefighting helicopters. Now, the helicopters fly up to the stations and replenish their supply of retardant before heading back to the flames. Their air efforts have been key in stopping the spread of the apple fire because of its remote location. All right, time to check in with Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett, who's standing by with a look at your AccuWeather forecast. Mike, pyrocumulus clouds got everybody excited in the news department, or the weather department. Why is that?
Well, first of all, because it's fun to say, Gino. It makes you sound smart just by getting those words out of your mouth. Here is an example, and basically what happens is whenever you have a fire of this magnitude, you burn all of the moisture out of trees. In fact, let's take a look at this graphic real quick here, and I'll show you how it works. This is pyrocumulus. It looks just like a cumulus cloud, one of those storm clouds that you'll see developing in the afternoons. Of course, we haven't seen much of that so far this year. The monsoon has been basically non-existent. But have you ever burnt at a campfire and you've got a piece of wood there that's too wet, or you bought some of that discount firewood and it just sits there and sizzles and pops and really does more sizzling and popping than burning? Well, that's basically what's happening here. Remember, even though we're talking about dry brush, there's still some moisture in there, especially near the roots, and then of course the leaves and all of the fauna there has that moisture in it. So as it burns, it's got nowhere to go but up into the atmosphere. It literally forms a cumulus cloud that looks exactly the same as an afternoon thunderstorm cloud. Now, it attaches to the ash as it goes up there and actually becomes a molecule, creates that cloud, and you think, great, right? We've got a rain cloud on top of our storm here. It's going to rain and this is going to save us. Nope. This is generally a dry thing. Sometimes you can get something that's called pyrocumulonimbus. That will drop some rain, but for the most part, these are dangerous. The dry lightning inside of them can actually create more fires in the vicinity of the fire, and the outflow winds, or the downdrafts that come from these things, can actually spread the ashes out as well. So they're not particularly great. We didn't get any reports of pyrocumulus creating any problems for us, but we certainly got some spectacular images out of the deal, and that's exactly how pyrocumulus works. Apple fire forecast tonight into tomorrow. As Gino was saying, things are moving in the right direction. Overnight, we'll see that recovery back up to about 25% as far as the humidity goes. Tomorrow, we'll see that drop back down to about the 10 to 15% range. And tonight, we are tracking some wind gusts that'll get up to about 30 miles an hour. Typical for this time of year. Not great, but not as bad as it could be. None of that 50, 60, 70 mile an hour stuff we saw last fall. And temperatures are even moving in the right direction for the firefighters. It looks like above 6,000 feet. They'll be running in the upper 70s, the lower 80s tomorrow. We'll see some temperatures that'll get into the low 90s below 6,000 feet. So again, warm, but not overly hot. We're pretty warm right now. We're running about 3 degrees above average, 110 currently at Palm Springs International. Light breeze coming in from the north. Winds will pick up tonight, about 25, 30 miles an hour. We'll talk about that. And it's dry out there as well. 8% humidity at the airport. Next 3 days brought to you by Comfort Air show us in a relatively benign zone for the first half of the week, but tracking some high pressure that's going to build during the second half of the week. week is going to get hot. And those overnights, they're going to go into that uncomfortable range as well. I'll walk you through the whole thing coming up.
Coronavirus coverage brought to you by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of eastern Coachella Valley.
With the U.S. topping 5 million cases, these 5 states combined now make up more than 40% of the infections. It took 99 days for the U.S. to reach the first million COVID-19 cases, but as the U.S. went from 4 to 5 million, it took just 17 days. Over the weekend, President Trump signed 4 executive actions, 3 moratoriums, and 1 executive order. The most talked about action provides Americans an extra $400 in unemployment benefits. However, only 75% of that funded by the federal government. The other 25% from the state, or $100 is supposed to come from the state in which you live. Today, California Governor Gavin Newsom addressed this order, saying there's no way, at least our state, can afford it.
The state does not have an identified resource of $700 million per week that we haven't already obliged. There is no money sitting in the piggy bank of the previous CARES Act to be reprioritized or reconstituted for this purpose. Simply does not exist.
There was also discussion over the weekend about whether it is constitutional or not for the president to take any of these actions. California officials say the state has completely cleared a backlog of 300,000 coronavirus test results. You may recall that was a technical problem that we ran into last week with the health agency's database being fully backlogged. Those test results will be filtered to counties for processing over the next few days. We did receive a statement from county health officials saying that they believe the issue will be resolved this week at the county level. However, they don't know how it's going to impact the numbers today, tomorrow, and going forward to see how it will affect the trend in our county. Let's take a look at those latest COVID-19 numbers. Now, again, they don't report over the weekend, and they could be filtering in those delayed cases, so the numbers are going to feel inflated, especially on Mondays. You're looking at 1,531 new cases in the county, 431 here in the Coachella Valley, 21 new deaths countywide, 7 in the Coachella Valley. California's public health director, Dr. Sonia Angel, abruptly resigned last night. This comes after the state experienced that technical glitch with testing numbers. Angel held the position for less than a year, and when asked about the situation earlier today, the governor said that he felt it was appropriate to accept her resignation under the circumstances. Recent data shows that more kids are getting infected with COVID-19. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, more than 97,000 children tested positive in the last half of July. It's a 40% jump in the number of pediatric cases since the pandemic began. As of July 30th, there were almost 339,000 cases reported in children, and they made up about 9% of all cases. Palm Springs Unified School District entered its first full week of online education, and families are still trying to adjust to the new school year. For many, technology has been an issue, but the district says those problems are decreasing every day. Our Olivia Sandusky joins us live now with the very latest on how schools are going to look a little different this year. Olivia.
Gino, they did feel a little more prepared for this online school year because it wasn't as much of a surprise as we saw in the spring, but that doesn't mean it didn't come with a few issues. I did speak to a few local staff and students right here at Palm Springs Unified to see just exactly what those complications are and how they're working through them.
Well, I think it's going well.
Emily Blackwell just started 8th grade at Raymond Cree Middle School. Her mom says they haven't had any issues connecting online, but have had to make some changes.
I just make sure everyone except for my other daughter is off, and the only 2 people online are them. And I guess that's what you have to do until at least they get out of school, and then anybody can go back on after that.
For families with Wi-Fi issues, Palm Springs Unified has given out over 4,200 hotspots since March, covering about 18% of their student body. And the district's director of technology has been busy helping families get connected.
We have 22,500 students. I'd say we fielded about 120 questions about parent can't connect, parent has to work, can't help the kid do the Zoom.
Carr says parent involvement has increased tremendously this year, something Jennifer is experiencing firsthand.
No doubt. We do have one parent in the home. They get this home. I actually work, and then he's here to watch or if they need help. They're pretty self-sufficient, very self-motivated. I think it would be a little bit more of a struggle if they were, say, in first grade or second grade.
For parents in need of help, PSUSD offers technology resources throughout the week. And Carr says he's now gathering data to help teachers get more information about their students as well.
So I can see the time the student logs in, the time they access their content, how much time they spend accessing their content, either one way or two way. And so we're going to start generating data on that to see which pockets of students are doing really, really well and which ones need more support.
Now, Palm Springs Unified was the first to get started in this academic year. We will see Coachella Valley start on the 14th, just later on this week, and Desert Hot Springs getting started. That's Desert Sands getting started on the 19th. Reporting live for NBC Palm Springs, I'm Olivia Sandusky.
All right, thank you, Olivia. Coming up next, President Trump abruptly escorted out of the press briefing room by Secret Service during his coronavirus briefing today. We'll tell you about that after the break. Plus, thousands of protesters are blaming the Lebanese government for last week's explosion in Beirut. Tonight, the government responds amid a weekend of violence.
When we welcome our West Coast viewers, our exclusive access inside the lab in Wuhan, China, that's been an object of conspiracy theories about the origins of the coronavirus. Also, what's the most effective face covering? We'll tell you what a new study says about the masks we wear on NBC Nightly News.
President Trump abruptly evacuated from the White House press briefing room today by security after shots were fired outside the building. Take a look at the moment a Secret Service agent escorted the president from the podium.
Just about going to be topping records hopefully soon. Excuse me?
When the president returned a few minutes later, he said the Secret Service had fired shots at a suspect who was armed. That person was taken to the hospital. He also said that the armed person was outside the fencing of the White House. President Trump says he was not taken to the bunker, but back into the Oval Office. Violence overnight in downtown Chicago with many people breaking windows and looting businesses. The violence was apparently sparked by an earlier shootout between police and a 20-year-old suspect. More than 100 people were arrested and at least 13 officers were injured during the violence. Lebanon's government resigns today after last weekend's massive explosion in Beirut. The prime minister and his cabinet resigned after a weekend of protest. The explosion killed hundreds and injured 6,000 and left an estimated 300,000 people homeless. The explosion is believed to be a result of a stockpile of ammonium nitrate igniting after being stored at the port since 2013 with few, if any, safeguards. Many are blaming the government for the lack of oversight in this tragic case. All right, we're back after the break, but first, Mike standing by the big green wall.
Gino, as if Pyrocumulus wasn't exciting enough, we've had a very active day seismically across Southern California. We're going to give you the details on that. We'll take a closer look at that weekend warm-up when we come back. 'Cause 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 we come ba Welcome back. Now that's what we're talking about. All of that smoke we've been tracking for the better part of the last 10 to 12 days is now starting to thin. CAL FIRE doing a phenomenal job with that. They will continue to monitor this and let the rest of it burn itself out across the San Gorgonio wilderness there. Here's another live look for you. This one much more pleasant. This is our Agua Caliente Casino Cam downtown, looking at the cultural center just taking shape there. Lots of beautiful blue sky behind that. We will be seeing a little bit of a change as we go through the week. I want to introduce you to Elida. At least it's not Isaias. I was really struggling with that one. This one is in the Eastern Pacific. As you can see right off the tip of the Baja, there is Cabo. This is going to go through some very favorable warm water for about another 24 hours. Is expected to strengthen slightly, and then we'll move into some cooler water. Should not be an issue. Let's take a look at that. Category 1, barely holding on to some sustained winds at about 75 miles an hour. Gusts into the low 90s there as well. It's got some wheels on it. It's moving about 14 miles an hour to the west-northwest. And as you can see there, we'll downgrade back into tropical storm status and then just move out into some cooler water. Should not be an issue to anybody, including Hawaii. But what it will do is get trapped in between some high pressure that's basically over top of Texas there and a low pressure system that's off towards our north there. And that's going to stream some of that cloud cover over top of Southern California and into Arizona as well. So here's what it looks like as we go into Tuesday. We will see some storms down on the southern end of Arizona there, close to Yuma. Nothing's going to come here. But as we move towards Wednesday, we will start to see some more shower activity offshore and some stronger monsoonal storms that will move up into Arizona. Again, not expecting any rain here, but what we will see is some high cloud cover and humidity is going to go up as well. So as we go through the rest of the week, it's not good news. We're going to see those dew points getting up into the mid 40s, eventually into the 50s by the time we get to Friday. Still keeps humidity around 15%, but it keeps those overnights really warm. We don't get a chance to cool. That's not the only thing going on. Lots of reports today of some seismic activity. In fact, if you look between about 6:30 this morning and about 9:15, we had several temblors that were between about 2.6 and a couple of them getting up into that 4.6 range as well. Just a reminder, have a plan in place and try and keep more than half a tank of gas in your car this time of year in case you need some quick air conditioning. 112 today was well above average. We're sitting at 108 right now in Thousand Palms, 111 in the Yucca Valley, 70s up in Big Bear. Slow cooling tonight puts us in the mid 80s overnight, but 75 is what we'll start the day off tomorrow, warming up to 110, very similar to what we saw today. Lots of 111s, 112 in Palm Desert, low 100s up in Joshua Tree. Your Comfort Air 7-day forecast shows that we are very clearly in August. We're going to see that humidity raise those overnight temperatures to a very uncomfortable upper 80s on Friday and Saturday. We're going to stay in that excessive hot range through the weekend and then finally start to cool it down again next week.
Some consumer news for you tonight. Amazon and shopping mall owner Simon Property Group are reportedly in talks to turn some empty department store space into Amazon fulfillment centers. For Amazon, more centers near residential areas would speed up crucial last mile of delivery. And for Simon, turning over what was once prime mall space shows it's willing to give up on foot traffic in order to secure a steady tenant. McDonald's is suing their ousted CEO for millions of dollars. Steve Easterbrook left the company last year after the board of directors learned of his sexual relationship with an employee. But now the board wants their money back. They're accusing Easterbrook of lying and destroying information, as well as having relationships with 3 other employees. We got a little bit more after the break. Stick around. All right, that's going to do it for us. If you missed any of this show or there's a story you'd like to see again, just scan the QR code here. It'll take you to all of our social media sites. See you back here at 6.